Good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are, however your day is going. Thank you for joining me today. Chapter 6. I'm going to move through this chapter rather quickly, so if you listen quick, I'll talk quick, and we can make this lecture a little bit shorter than some of the other ones. There's a little less to discuss here, and I know you have some other work this week. Once again, I want to remind you, you need to make sure and do the selected readings and answer those questions. That is worth a great deal, or a very large percentage of your grade. All right, question number 1. What happened on St. Bartholomew's Day in 1572? And St. Bartholomew's Day in Paris, France, on St. Bartholomew's Day, Protestant Huguenots, or the Protestant French, in contrast to the Catholic French, they're called the Huguenots. Over 10,000 Huguenots, the Protestants, were murdered and butchered in cold blood. It happened in 1572. Okay, that is just something for you to know. France had established a colony in Canada. All right, Canada was their colony. It's called New France. The French and the English had fought quite a number of wars over the years, and we're going to talk about one of these wars here. But basically, the French established trading posts and outposts along with the Hudson Bay colony in Canada and through the West. You'll note on page 108 of your textbook, you'll see all of the French trading posts, and you'll see various spots from the Northwest Company and the Hudson Bay Company, etc. And it's quite impressive how thoroughly they covered Canada and the West. Even, this is back, remember, in the late 1600s and early 1700s. It's quite impressive. The one valuable resource and the resource they had, and the reason they were doing this is they were wanting beaver pelts. Okay, it was very fashionable. All right, they would buy a beaver, and they would trap beaver, throw out there, and then sell it, and it was shipped back to back to the old world, to France, and sold. That is question number 2. What resource did New France have? That was beaver. All right. Now, in New France, they were Catholics. They were not Huguenot or Protestant. Another thing that the French had there in New France, and they shared with the Indians, and they often in exchange for beaver pelts was alcohol, and we find that alcohol had a horrific impact on the Indian population and the Indian society in Canada and throughout wherever alcohol hit in Indian society. Now, some French Catholic missionaries, notably the Jesuits, labored to save them missionaries for Christ and from the fur trappers, but mostly, in comparison to the English and the Spanish, it was more about economics. All right. Question number 26. What became the chief bone of contention between the French and the English? Well, the chief bone of contention, it was the Ohio River Valley. The Ohio River Valley is actually the area of Pittsburgh, to Cleveland, that area. And that area was very profitable for a wide variety of reasons. And both Europeans, English and French, began to fight over that. That was an area that eventually sparked the war. There had been a number of wars, and you'll note on page 111 and 110 of your textbook, it talks about the 9 world wars. It mentions several different names, but world wars actually were fought before when we commonly think of World War I and World War II. They were fought on a whole different places. For example, the French and Indian War is also known as the French and Indian War is also known as the 7 Years' War. In Europe, it's called the 7 Years' War, and in America, it's called the French and Indian War. It was not fought just here in the United States. We call it the French and Indian War because the colonists were fighting against the French and Indians. They call it the 7 Seas War because the war was fought on 7 seas. France and England were fighting for global supremacy. They were fighting to become the chief and the powerful empire. If you're of English heritage, you have an enmity going back with France several hundred years. If you're of French heritage, you have an English enmity toward the English going back several hundred years. As Americans, we have neither enmity toward either. Our heritage comes from the English, but we gained our freedom from France. So we have great feelings of warmth toward both. But it is a common joke. Having lived in the Caribbean among English people, they don't like the French, and the French don't like the English. It's a common joke back and forth between the two. Today it is a joke, having fought on the same side for so many years since these times. There was a fortress. It's called Louisbourg. Okay, Louisbourg or Louisburg. I'm going to call it Louisbourg because I believe the French king was named Louis. Louisbourg was up as a fort that is up above in Canada. It's above the Cape. It's in the Cape Breton Island. It's above Port Royal. It's above actually even Quebec there. But it was a seemingly impregnable fortress. It's on a massive cliff on one side. Great walls, a tremendous fortress. All right, I'm not going to describe everything about it. What's important is it was viewed as like the gateway to the Canada and North America, because you couldn't conquer it, and it could protect it could protect the entrance into the St. Lawrence Canal, and if you couldn't go into that seaway, etc., without going through it and its guns, and it allowed whoever controlled a lot of the entryway to Canada. A general here had a tremendous feat, and the tremendous feat was very simply through capturing it. And a lot of the individuals who captured it were those from England. I'm sorry, from New England, not England, New England. And because of their experience with shipping, they made great soldiers with the ships, etc., there in going into New England. So when they captured that, it was a big deal. Now, they were fighting against the French, or fighting against the Indians. By capturing this, they felt like they stopped the Catholics from expanding into North America, and that was their goal. Remember, these are Puritans, Protestants. They're fighting against Catholics. They fought them for hundreds of years. Okay, literally fought them in Europe for hundreds of years. And by capturing this, they feel like they've stopped their encroachment into North America. Now, the British gave it back with the peace treaty of 1748. To many, it seemed like that they were fighting then for this. What they were fighting for was then traded away by old world diplomats. That caused a lot of hard feelings. In the French and Indian War, there was an individual named George Washington. Perhaps you've heard of him. He's often known for a lot of things, but the first mention of him that we have historically, really, is in the French and Indian War. He happened to be a surveyor who went up into the Ohio Valley, surveyed that, then got permission to take some troops up there and try to claim it for the British, and basically instigated the war. He encountering a small detachment of French troops in the forest about 40 miles from Fort Duquesne near Pittsburgh. The Virginians fired the first shots of what became the French and Indian War, and the Seven Seas War. Well, Washington then, after he defeated the French, built a little fort called Fort Necessity, where he was forced to surrender in July 1754, on, ironically, the 4th of July. But he was allowed to march his troops away. With the war started, the British went and captured and worked on fighting in Canada. And one of the things they did there was they uprooted several 4,000 Acadians, Acadians, and deported them out of French Acadia, and deported them now down near New Orleans. And they sent them there, and now they're called Cajuns, Cajuns, and now they number nearly a million people. But when you talk about like Cajun sauce and Cajun cooking, that is where it comes from. Who was a surveyor and was defeated at Fort Necessity? Question number 27. George Washington. What happened to General Braddock? They sent a general in, General Braddock, with a couple thousand troops, British troops. And they hacked and they went through the forest and began hacking up forests for wagons, and they marched very slowly, in order, very professionally. All right. His men got ambushed and massacred because the Indians hid behind the trees and shot them down. And they didn't fight back by hiding behind the trees and shooting back at them. No, they just stood there and tried to fire volleys into, and instead of aiming, they just fired volleys into the woods. That worked well in the British, for the British, and that worked militarily in open fields. But it doesn't work well against fighting in skirmish style in the woods, and they got massacred. So that is what happened to General Braddock. His army got massacred. Who barely escaped death fighting alongside Braddock? George Washington. George Washington fought alongside him, and this is where a lot of his war experience comes from. He fought alongside and had commands in the French and Indian War here, which is where eventually his experience, why he was chosen for leadership. But he had 2 horses shot out from under him, and had 4 bullets pierce his coat. Now it's quite impressive that George Washington escaped death with 6 bullets inches from him, or feet from him. At least 6. I mean, 4 bullets piercing his coat, 2 horses shot out from under him. It is truly a miracle he survived. And you have to look at the hand of God's providence here in the creation of America. If George Washington had not survived, our country would look far different. But by a miracle of God, he survived, and therefore our country's the father of our country exists and stayed alive and founded our country. What battle ended the French rule in the New World? Well, the Battle of Quebec is a very famous battle. Quebec and Quebec was captured by General Wolfe, whose army climbed up a cliff by the bushes that were growing on the cliff. They thought it was inescapable. They climbed up this cliff and fought a battle against the French, defeated the French, and as a result, the French were then vanquished from North America forever. Therefore, it ranks as one of the most significant engagements in British and American history. With that defeat, then the North America then became completely now British, and then eventually American and British, but there was never any more French really living there. Now you will have a little bit of French influence at another point in Napoleon, but it really is not. There is no actual French really living there. What was the proclamation of 1763? In the French and Indian War, they fought this. The American colonists fought this war, trying to defeat the French, trying to get the Ohio River Valley, etc., because they needed more land. They're expanding, their population's growing. They're trying to expand westward. They're fighting Indians. They're fighting the French. They want more land. They need more. They need more space to grow. Their economy's growing. The population is growing. So they defeated them. They fought this war to gain this Ohio River Valley and the western areas. However, out of the clear blue sky, right after the war, pioneers are flooding the west. People like Daniel Boone. Okay, out of the clear blue sky in 1763, the London government issues the Proclamation of 1763, which says no settlers, no colonists are allowed to go beyond the Appalachian Mountains to establish. The colonists are like, what in the world? I just fought the war to gain my right to go there. Is this not my birthright? We're colonists. We came to a new world. You can't tell this. Our birthright is to settle wherever we want in this new world. And furthermore, did we not purchase it with our blood? They basically ignored the rule and just went west anyhow. And this created great conflict between the British and the Americans. They felt like, hey, one of them was like almost like apparently, hey, you're not allowed to do this, and the kids are like, no, we're adults now. We can go out here and do this. And you have this conflict that's arising. And we'll talk more about it later. But this is basically the colonists began to flaunt royal authority. And you will note here, they didn't view the royal proclamation as, oh, we should follow this. No, they just basically ignored it. Like, who are you to tell us where we cannot go and settle? That is the end of the lecture. By the way, that was the last question there, number 31. That is the end of lecture number 6. Again, I urge you to make sure you do the readings and complete the questions on there as well. Thank you. Have a great day.